channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Tanasia. I am a third semester respiratory care student, and we are approaching our last 2 days of school for the semester, which starts tomorrow, and then we'll be on break for the summer until we come back towards the middle or towards the end of next month. So graduation is slowly but surely approaching. The purpose of me doing this video is because I have been currently editing videos that I already have in my phone. So I've been kind of going through my phone and my videos and trying to put all of the vlogs that I had already filmed, and I've been trying to put them together so I can edit them and put them on my channel for you guys to see. And this video right here is basically correlating with the part 1 Q&A that I did a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to incorporate some new questions that were asked of me based on my last upload that I put. And I wanted to kind of redo the part 2 because I wanted to include all the questions that were asked. And then if you guys have more questions, feel free to ask me. I don't mind commenting under my videos as well. But I did feel like a lot of the questions that I did get were very important, where I wanted to kind of include them in this video, because I've been getting some requests that they wanted me to do, like my interview process, how much I get paid, what my state requires, what my state offers for a student intern, and what benefits come with being an intern for your hospital or any type of acute facility that you work for. So I felt like this would be a great time for me to include that in here and basically just answer any additional questions that I didn't get a chance to get to in my part 1. So let's get started. The first question that I did have on here regarding, my school is, do you work while going to school? To answer that question, I do. I'm only PRN, and what that means is, with me staying compliant with my scholarship through my job, I am only required to work 24 hours a month or 24 hours a scheduling period. So if I want to pick up extra hours, I am free to do so, depending on, one, what your job's budget is for students, and two, just basically if there's any available shifts open, because you do have to keep in mind that even though you're a student, you're still taking the place of an actual therapist. So whatever shifts you do pick up, you have to also keep in mind you're not guaranteed to get those days, because again, you're still a student, you're an intern, but you are performing the duties as an actual therapist. So right now, at this moment with COVID and then other things that's been going on as far as budgeting and anything else that might go on that's pretty much a daily thing, could also play a part in you being able to pick up extra days, or just however you want to work your schedule. And a big thing too, it also depends on your manager and what the availability is for you. So if they're not really able to work with you to a degree where you get the same exact days every week, you can always try to work with them or see if there's something that they could do to try to work with you, because they've been to school before. They know, what they had to do to get their clinical hours in and what type of time they had to put in for their program. So they're fully aware of what you got going on and what you're having to do, and how your schedule is pretty much subject to change all the time. And again, with us, our schedules have been changing almost every week, almost, due to guidelines with COVID. Hospital regulations have changed, and any of you guys that already work in the hospital, you know that rules always change with the hospital almost every day. So half the time when you are already working at a hospital, you don't know what you're walking into, because again, the facility switches it up all the time, and it could be just due to something that they may have not have seen that week, but they may have caught today, and they said, okay, we're going to enforce these, and then the next day you'll get an email or something like that. So it just all depends on what facility you work for, what your manager is able to do, and just basically looking into what best works for you and what days you're willing to actually work when it comes to your clinical and your regular class days. Let's see. Another person had asked me as far as my interviewing process, how much I make, and just basically just addressing everything and all the benefits that come with the student position. that I'm currently working. As you guys know, I am a respiratory care intern, and what that is I am actually taking assignments as if I was a regular RRT, and I am maintaining patient care, making changes to patients' medications, whether it be a different brand name drug that might work better for them. I am making suggestions and placing orders for any type of mucus clearance therapy. Anything that a regular RRT could do, I'm doing. And I have access to message doctors. I have access to making suggestions to a physician saying that a patient may need to be transferred to a different floor because the care that this patient needs based on their particular health issues could be better managed on this floor versus them being on this floor. And there's been times where I've had a patient that needed to be on a cardiac floor that was on a regular med surg floor that needed to go to a cardiac floor. And within an hour or so, the doctor transferred that patient from that floor that I had to an actual cardiac floor. And I just pretty much just do everything that a regular RRT does. And you just have to be confident with what you do, because I can't stress this enough in all the previous videos that I've done, basically expressing that when you first start your job, you are going to be nervous, and that's very normal. And some days I'm still nervous because at the end of the day, you don't know what type of load you're going to get. You don't know if a patient that's been doing good all week might decide to just crump on your day. Like, it's just, you never know what type of situation you're going to walk into when it's time for you to work. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even next week on the same days that you work. But it's always a guessing game because you just never know what you're going to get. And with that being said, you have to be prepared for anything. As an intern, you can still run a code. Anything that a regular RRT does, CRT, whatever, you are going to be doing the same duties as a respiratory therapist because that is what you're there to do. My particular hospital, they put us out there, give us 2 days of orientation, and you're thrown out there on your own. If it's something that you don't feel comfortable with, you do have the opportunity to ask your backup therapist, because you're always going to have a backup therapist, and you're also able to ask any respiratory therapist that is there on your shift. You can always ask them questions. When I actually work, every therapist there would ask me, if you need anything, just let me know. You don't necessarily have to direct all your questions to your backup therapist. We are here for you as well. Even my manager, everyone is pretty much basically letting me know that they are available to me as well, and not just my backup therapist, because all of us are going to be busy. But if you need help and there's a therapist right there that you can ask, just ask. Don't feel like a question you might ask is a dumb question, because there's no such thing as a dumb question. You need to ask a question because this relates to patient care. You don't want your fear of asking a question because you feel like it sounds dumb to cost the patient their life or to make their condition worse than what they were before you actually started caring for them. So always be very mindful that asking questions is not a problem. Even if some people might come off as, oh, she's asking too many questions, or he's asking too many questions. As long as you have crossed your T's and dotted your I's on your behalf, and you did everything that you can possibly think of for this patient on your side as a respiratory care intern, that's all you can do. You have to leave that to the nurses, the doctor, to change any type of plan of care that needs to be taken with this patient, because now the dynamics of that patient's condition has to be directed in a different direction that does not go with, that no longer has anything to do with respiratory, because their conditioning worsening in the stage that it is outside of our specialty. So now the doctor has to take a new direction on what the new plan of care is going to be for this patient. So never feel like you failed your patient, you failed as a student, you'll never get this down pat. It's a learning experience every single day that you step foot into a hospital and you take that load that you have to look after when you're dealing with patient care. Moving on to the next question, still pertaining to the same thing, but as far as my job, the next question that was asked of me as far as what was my interview process like. Okay, now with my interview process, I did have to go through 3 separate interviews. The first one, of course, you have to do the application and everything, but since I applied for this position at the same facility that I was working at, I did an internal application where it pretty much brought me to a page to transfer departments. So all the information that was on my previous position on that application just pretty much transferred over to the application that I was applying for in the student position for the respiratory department. And after that, I totally forgot about it, and the application was pretty much straightforward. It didn't really exhaust like most hospital applications would be, and I think because I've already worked there, sometimes that'll make the application process a lot more easier to where you don't have to worry about filling out so much paperwork. So really that's a good suggestion as well. If you guys are already working as a CNA, what else, a patient care tech, multi-care tech, whatever your position is at your job, if it's a hospital, you can always transfer over to a different department, whether it's a nursing department, a respiratory care department, x-ray, ultrasound, just whatever. The application process is made to be a whole lot easier because you're not having to worry about filling out all that information, taking a whole nother drug screen, background check, all of that stuff like that, because all your documentation is already on file with that facility. So it just makes that application process so much easier. But back to that question, I did the application part that I just explained. Then after that, I think it took maybe only like a week or 2 for me to get a phone call about what time my interview was going to be. And at the time, you had the option to either do a video call or a phone call, or however it was comfortable for you. I chose a phone call because I don't know about you guys, but even though I have worked at this hospital for 4 years, it's just been pretty much, I still get nervous when I'm interviewing for a different job and the person is like staring me in the face. So it kind of just makes me very nervous. And then when I come down to ask them any questions, I've already forgot what I wanted to ask. So I try to make sure that if I can minimize my anxiety for the interview or just whatever, I'll pick a phone call over a video call. So they set up the time for the video call, and then I want to say like maybe later on that week, my interview was either the week afterwards, and they ended up having to reschedule it because, again, staffing issues is something that is still going on at every facility, not just particularly my job. So that did have a lot to do with me having to get my interview rescheduled for a different week. And once I actually got on the phone, the questions that they asked me were not like straightforward respiratory questions. They were just standard questions as far as the ones that you would get, like what would you do if you were in this situation? When was there a time that you dealt with this, and how did you get through it? Those type of questions. So those are the type of questions that I did have to ask. Some of the responses that I did give did incorporate some instances that I did experience at clinicals. I want to say the semester prior to when I did do my interview with my job for that position. So I was able to incorporate some stuff respiratory, but majority of my stuff patient care tech, bedside type stuff. So the interview process wasn't bad, but it was kind of nerve-wracking too, because you want to answer every question correct. You don't want to have to pass on a question, but I did have to pass on maybe 2 or 3 questions to come back to them after I answered all the other ones, because it was kind of hard for me to answer some of the questions, because that's just like a test. They ask a question a certain way, then it kind of makes it a little bit harder to answer it. So those be the questions you have to skip and come back to. So I found myself coming back to like a couple questions when they were asked of me, and then while I'm answering like other questions, I might write down some stuff that might better answer the question that they asked me. And once it does, then they ask me the question again, then I'm able to kind of answer it a little bit better. But half the time the managers will tell you like that's a really hard question to answer, because even I stumble over asking it. So never feel bad about having to skip on a question, because they're just going to ask you later on after they finish asking all the other questions. So that gives you a little bit of time to figure out like how are you going to ask this, like what have I experienced that could better answer that question when it comes back around. So that's something that you can look at too. Another question was asked, how much do I make in my position? Well, right now I'm making $13 an hour on day shift as a respiratory intern. But it is different, of course, because some students work at night, they get an extra $1. And then I think we get, I don't think we get weekend diff, but I think we do get like a certain time of the shift. Like if you hit evening or a certain period of time, like after 12 or something, you get like a different incentive. But that's how much the student positions is for me. I'm not sure as far as how much the wage would be for a new grad on my job, but that's something that I will probably ask once I get close to my graduation date, because I believe like in some instance there have been other competing hospitals that pay I think the lowest rate that I've heard people pay new grad therapists in the Georgia area is $26. So I don't know if my job is somewhere close to that or if they make that, but I know that there has been some discussion that they were going to work on changing the hourly wage for new grads, and also basically compensate therapists that have already been there for years. So I'm not really sure what a new grad would make, but that's definitely something that I am going to ask the next time I either work or the next time I feel like I've gotten everything else out of the way where I could have time to ask like some real questions. Because a lot of times, and this is a big tip too, if you guys do accept scholarships at facilities that require payback in labor, make sure that the facility that you choose is the facility that you want to work at. Because if you feel like you're going to be the type of person that takes the scholarship, and then once you find out what they make and you decide to break that contract, just know that depending on the facility and how their contract is set up, you're going to have to pay either double or triple back in interest on top of what you've already accepted and spent from them. So just keep that in mind, because you don't want to be a student that's graduating and spending half of your first or second year paying back a loan double or triple because you didn't read the conditions of your contract. My condition of my contract is only for a year because I used under $7,000, but you're also welcome to pay out of pocket as well to kind of keep that that line where you want it, so that you won't enter into the second year mark if you choose to want to go somewhere else to work or maybe to travel. Whatever you choose to do, you have that option. So that's a big tip I want you guys to consider, that when you're looking for a student position and you want to work at a job doing the same exact thing where you are as a student, ask those questions with HR, ask those questions with the department, so that way you know where to go with your decision before you even put your name on anything and take an obligation like that. So that's something that you definitely do want to keep in mind, so that you don't feel trapped and obligated to stay there if you feel like you will be happier somewhere else. But some people still break the contracts and they just pay it because they want to just get away from that facility and start something different. So that's always an option as well too. But if you're like me I'd rather just work my year off, because a year or two is still required before you can even travel. So at least that way you're knocking two birds out with one stone. You get the experience and you get your year under where you can go ahead and start traveling and then taking care of anything else you need to. So that's just a big thing to consider when you are looking for a student job and want to work while you're still in school. The next question that I got was, what are the benefits? What benefits do you receive as a student intern? Well, the benefits, they're really limited because, again, I am PRN, and a lot of times you don't get like the full on insurance, the full, dental, vision, everything like that. When you're part-time, you still can get health insurance, you still can get dental, you still can get vision, life insurance, all that in the third. But when you're as needed, you don't get any of that. Now, full-time, the prices of those things are probably cheaper, but when you're full-time, when you're part-time, those rates change where they get more expensive. And with you being paid every bi-weekly, you're paying for your insurance every 2 weeks of the doubled rate that it was if you were full-time, to where it would be so much cheaper, but because you're part-time, the rates have doubled. So you're paying way more money than you would pay if you were to have your own independent insurance. And that's a big tip as well that I want to put out there. If you are a type of person where you like to move around a lot and you like to explore your options, this, that, and the third, it will be cheaper for you to get your own independent health insurance, dental insurance, vision, life insurance. Even if there's life insurances included in your insurance, ask those questions, because a lot of times insurances do have other coverages that a lot of people don't know about. And I try to tell people to ask your insurance company, because they know way more than what you think. And a lot of people don't know this information because they don't ask these type of questions. And then it's all on who you talk to that has gone through that. And sometimes you get new information from someone else that you never thought of. So that's something that you have to look into too. And then credit unions. Credit unions offer life insurance as well, car insurance, anything of that nature. Look into credit unions, look into other banks that offer life insurance as well. Even your car insurances offer life insurances and any type of additional coverage onto your health. So that's another thing you guys want to look into too. If you're wanting to go into independent, look into those places as well. And I will have like a recap of what I just said in the corner here, so that way if you guys didn't catch it, then you could see in the corner to give you suggestions as far as what you can do and how can you find independent coverage. And then you got to look at it too. The perk about that is you only have to pay for your insurance once a month versus bi-weekly, double the price. So that's a big budget cut too. The student position, and I think the regular RRTs have this option too. You can work either an 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift. Me, I work 12 hours because, again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you have to at least work 24 hours. So I try to get my 24 hours out every time. And then if I work an extra day, I'll just make that third day an 8 hours. So you don't have to work yourself to death if you feel like you want to do an 8-hour on your third day, because that's what I do. Because I'm thinking about how tired I'm going to be and how early I want to get off, so that way I can have time to still run errands during the day, get home, wash my uniform, make dinner, prep for lunch and stuff the next day if I have to work another shift. But 9 times out of 10, I'm just pretty much gathering my items to get ready to hit the road the next day, because I am commuting almost 4 hours from Alabama back to Georgia. So I have to pretty much like get everything situated and packed and ready to go the night before, so that way when I get up in the morning, I can leave straight out, gas up if I haven't already, and hit that road early enough to come back and prep for the week, so that way I don't have to do anything but go in my refrigerator, pull out my containers with my lunch and stuff in it, put it in my lunch bag, and move on. And a lot of times if you don't do that, it sounds like a lot, but if you do not prep the weekend that you have a little bit of room, you're gonna drive yourself crazy during the week, and then you're gonna feel like you're all over the place because you weren't able to prep, or you just were too tired and you just didn't want to. But if you do what you have to do, that makes it so much easier to where you can get through the week without feeling like you're just drowning in so much to do. So that's something that I would definitely look into. Even if you have kids or you're just by yourself, meal prepping works for all angles. It don't matter if you don't have children, married, single, whatever. It works. What are my plans after I graduate from school? So, as of you guys know, like I mentioned before, I am attending school in Georgia and I permanently live in Alabama. My plans after I get done with school, graduate, I am going to stay the last 2 remaining months of my lease. My lease is up January 30th. So we graduate December 1st. So I'm going to take advantage of those 2 free months to study for my boards. We have to sign up for our boards 2 weeks prior to school. So I don't know if we have 2 weeks to take our boards or just 2 weeks to schedule our boards. I'm more so thinking it's 2 weeks to schedule our boards to where we can schedule them a month or 2 out. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take advantage of December and a full month of January to study for my board so I can take them and pass them the first time running for that for both my boards. But I do plan to move back home. There are a few things that I am working on right now that I'm not going to mention in this video because I'm in the process of doing that, and I don't want to tell you guys about something I'm working on and then it doesn't happen, then I have to come back, retract what I said. So I'm just going to put that little bit out there in the universe to manifest that in a positive light, so that way I can let you guys know everything that I'm doing and basically continue to inspire you guys to do the same thing too, if you guys don't already have some thoughts of what you guys would like to do after you graduate from school. I am currently signed up to take my undergrad, which starts in the fall. I'm not going to school I'm not going to get my bachelor's in respiratory. I want to get it in something else. My intentions for college was to have two different types of backgrounds as far as career wise. I wanted to do, my overall goal was to do a physician's assistant and possibly go to school to become a pediatrician and then open up my own practice. That is something that I did want to do, and who's to say my mind may change down the line, but that was something that I thought about doing once upon a time. But respiratory was something that I didn't see in the cards for me, so you see the dynamics of that changed. So the same way nursing changed from nursing to respiratory therapy, now me wanting to be a PA/pediatrician changed to me wanting to work to get my business degree, because I decided I want to obtain my business degree in healthcare, where it still correlates with what my background is, which is healthcare, and then I can kind of do my own thing from there. So that is definitely the direction that I'm wanting to go into, but still involved in healthcare. So what I decided to do was I went ahead and started applying. Well, some of the schools that I did apply to for respiratory school last year for fall admission were a couple of universities that do offer online bachelor's degree programs. So I was already registered with those schools. I just had to redo an application for that semester, because I think some schools after a semester or two, your application is basically voided out to where you have to redo it so that your student ID can become active again. So what I decided to do was I picked and looked online, did my research to see what type of undergraduate I wanted to obtain, but I wanted it to be 100% online, and I found a program that I was interested in that was offered online and that was not that far in distance if I needed to go to the school. I start that program, well, I actually start my prereqs in the fall, but I applied for second term, so my actual class won't start until mid-October, but it will be finished the same time that I will graduate from my school with my associates in respiratory. So I am really proud of myself for that, because I never saw myself going to multiple schools, especially with the schedule that I have now with this program. But my thing is, you never know how strong you are and how much you can take on until you actually accept the challenge. And I feel like with me taking on that challenge and saying I'm going to start my undergraduate, whether it's with one class, 2 classes, whatever works for you, you are still working towards another goal. And also wanted to take a moment to say thank you guys for subscribing to my channel. I've noticed that we're going up in numbers, and hopefully by the end of this month, if not next month, we can get to 100 subscribers. One thing I will say, and I will continue to say, and I don't care how tired y'all get of me saying it, but I do appreciate you guys for taking the time out to watch my videos, for one, and not just watch it, to watch it enough to the point where you guys actually like my videos, you guys comment, you are either complimenting me, actually asking questions, just interacting with me within my videos. And you guys, I don't mind interacting with you, because without you guys, my channel would not be doing well. And also with just the suggestions from you guys as far as what videos you want to see, what type of questions you have that might be a little bit more or less confusing in your area. But I would say that without you guys, my channel would not be doing as good as it is, because the questions that you guys ask me, that gives me more content to put out. So I do really appreciate you guys, and I will continue to tell you guys that every video that I make, because I feel like a lot of people who do become successful either on YouTube or just any type of platform, they forget that everything that you have is because people either on the outside in your circle or just people that you don't know are your biggest supporters, and they get you where you are today. And it also doesn't take away from the work that you put in as a person, but one of your huge contributions is always going to be your supporters. And that is something that I want to make sure I let you guys know, that you are appreciated. I see you. I am taking in all the love, and I appreciate that. One tip that I did want to mention to you guys that just came across me is, when you guys are thinking about applying for a respiratory intern, extern, whatever student position that's offered at your facility, make sure you ask your manager the right questions when you are in your interviews. The reason why I ask that is because a lot of times you can ask like the therapists there that have worked in student positions or whatever like that, but at the end of the day, they might not give you accurate information, because a lot of times people who come in as respiratory therapists, sometimes they hate on students. And I'm not saying that this is a common thing, but I have seen it for myself, that a lot of therapists who hate on students, and not particularly hating that person, but more so in a position where they feel like they wish they would have had the opportunity to be in a student position, to where they had a little bit more confidence when they first came out as a new grad RRT. So that's something that I have seen happen before. I have heard stories, and a lot of times don't feed into a lot of stories that you might hear on the clinical site as well, or even at your job, because a lot of times they will test you on that, and you don't know who knows who or who's been friends with who for a long time. So you never want to put yourself in a position where you find yourself losing your student job because you're involved in something that you're trying to fit in with. Never try to fit in. Be your own person. Be a leader, not a follower, because kissing ass don't get you nowhere. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because you'll be surprised how many people are followers more than they are leaders. And you know that type of person could not be the type of person you would want to be around, because with people like that comes negative vibes, sabotaging, making you feel like you don't know anything because they've been in the game longer. You have to keep all that considered when you're actually trying to intertwine with these people. There's nothing wrong with you being cordial and wanting to learn more from a person, but never be so quick to just attach yourself to a person just because they were nice to you, they helped you here and there. Because I've had a similar situation where I've asked for help, and that particular therapist low-key sabotaged me in a way. But luckily, with me having the knowledge that I have in certain situations to go the alternate route, I was able to fix my situation before it got out of hand to where it fell back on me. And that's just a big thing to actually consider when you're actually applying for these jobs. And this goes for any job, whether you're a construction worker, secretary, anything. Someone is always going to say or feel like your value is so high that it makes them self-conscious to the point where they want to try to devalue you, make you feel like you're not worth the stuff that you know, to make you feel like what you've been taught to do isn't what they were taught to do, and make you feel bad about it. You already are considered fresh meat when you come to the department, so never make a person feel like they can sense the sensitivity on you, where they can kind of, you know, use that against you in a sense to where you kind of fall off your game, and then everything you know up here from being in school kind of goes out the window. You know what I'm saying? Because I had to build my confidence. I mean, I'm pretty more confident than I was previously, but I still have my days. But never let them see it on you. Keep it to yourself. And if you have to use any resources to get answers to what you think you should do, or to confirm that what you're about to do is the right thing, use some good resources and make sure it's quick resources, because you never want to take like 30-15 minutes to look up something that's going to take forever, and you have a situation here where your patient is like not doing well. That's why it's good to pay attention in class, pay attention to stuff that your preceptors tell you, or anybody that teaches you something, or anytime you see that there's a teaching moment happening here, take notes. Anything they give you, resources, anything, take notes, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation like that. I'm a student and I work on the job doing actual RT stuff, but they're not just going to give you, they're going to give you what you're comfortable with, and they're going to give you what you're checked off for. But you are going to have some situations where you are going to be given a patient or two that's on the BiPAP. You might not have gone over BiPAPs, but you have been given a patient with the BiPAP. And a lot of times the backup therapist will have that BiPAP, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to be overseeing that patient. But this is a trick too. The only thing as a student that you have to really do, if you do have a patient on the BiPAP, 99.9% of the time, BiPAP settings are already going to be put on there. Alarms and everything are going to already be put on that machine. The only thing you have to do is just to make sure that when you go into the room, you've already gotten report from the night shift therapist, they gave you settings. But when you, just because they give you the settings doesn't mean that they're on there. Sometimes they will make changes and won't put the new settings down, because some people have the mindset, well, that when they'll see it when they go in the room. So always make sure you go in that patient's room that has anything at bedside, whether it be a BiPAP, CPAP, their home CPAP, AutoPAP, whatever. Always go in the room and copy those settings down on the BiPAP. And all you have to do is, when you walk into the room, the patient is already off the machine and it's on standby. If they want to wear their BiPAP machine to take a nap or whatever, all you got to do is just put the mask on the patient correctly and it will turn on its own. But when you want to take the patient off of the BiPAP, you just hit standby, hang the mask on top of the top part of the BiPAP, and then just put their supplemental oxygen on, which a lot of times is just the nasal cannula on like the most of like 2 liters or so, like that. That's like the simplest thing you could do for a BiPAP when it's just you as a student working and your backup therapist is busy as well. So that's something you want to always look into as well too when it comes to getting a BiPAP, even if you haven't even been trained on it yet at clinicals. With the AutoPAP, there's 2 different settings on the AutoPAP that you can set up for the patient. Some people wear CPAPs at home and may not have brought the CPAP to the hospital, and someone might be bringing their CPAP to the hospital the next day, or maybe they can't get it until next week. The hospital always has hospital equipment that you can put the patient on their exact settings that they have at home. Sometimes the patient might have that exact machine and they already know what their settings are, and you can just put it in for the patient, or you can put it on the second setting, which basically adapts to what the patient is doing, and it automatically sets the correct pressure for that patient, and then they just nod off to sleep. Only thing you have to do is making sure that when you're setting something up like that, to ask your backup therapist how to operate this auto PAP, or again, you can look into resources as well to help you set it up. But I do highly recommend that you do ask your backup therapist, because you don't want to, everything on the internet is not always accurate, so you want to always make sure that you confirm with your therapist that this is the correct way that you're setting this up, because you got to think about it. You don't want to mess around and cause barotrauma to your patient, because you can cause that if you put in the incorrect settings for an auto PAP, CPAP, or BiPAP as well. And that's a big issue that you don't want to have to be left to deal with, because you'll mess around and not even be able to get your license before you even get your license. So that's a big thing. You want to make sure that you always ask your backup therapist for help or confirmation that what you're doing is correct, because a lot of times they will come back and let you know, or they will even go through it. Or even if you have some free time and there's a therapist not busy, ask them, like, hey, or even your manager, ask the manager, hey, could you walk me through this? But if you haven't already done it in clinicals, ask your preceptor. Ask your preceptor, how do you use this? Ask your teacher, how do you use this, if y'all haven't already went over it. And the only thing you'd have to do with that is just making sure you have the appropriate tubing, the appropriate size mask for the patient. Always make sure that the machine is turned on and properly working before you put anything on the patient's face at all. And once you do confirm that it is working correctly, then you put it on the patient, and you always want to ask the patient, does that feel okay? Is there anything that I can do for you? Do you feel like I need to adjust this, or just whatever? Just find out what the patient's comfort level is, and then you can adjust from there. And you also never want to put it on too tight, because you don't want to cause any type of friction between the mask material and the skin, to where you start to cause sores and everything of that nature, because you have it on too tight, and then the patient can't really get comfortable because you're bowl constricting their face. And let me think, what else have I dealt with? The vapotherm. I have had an instance where I have had to maintain a vapotherm, and that was pertaining to the patient that I was mentioning before, where you have the authority and you have access to suggesting to the physician that this patient needs to be on this particular floor, versus them getting the help that they need extra on the floor they're already on. And that patient, I have never worked with a vapotherm before. We just got introduced to the vapotherm, I want to say halfway through this third semester, and I had already watched videos about it. I have seen it plenty of times, and I have seen it on clinicals. And I want to say the vapotherm is very easy to operate. It's not hard. And once you guys actually get to work with the vapotherm, you'll find it fairly easy. A lot of the equipment is fairly easy once you find out and actually work with it, and you see how to work it. It gets very easy and simple, so it's not as hard as a lot of people say it is, but it does get easy once you actually find out how to work it, what are like the lightest settings, the highest settings, what works for different patients and their condition. It all works once you get it and it starts to come together up here. You know what I'm saying? So that's another device that I've worked with. But while we're on break, I will be doing some training at my job in the ICU at my facility, because they do use different ventilators than what we use. But like my teacher said, once you get to the point where you can work one ventilator, know the settings, know what everything means, you can work any ventilator that is used at whatever facility that you travel to, or you just work at, just period. That's different outside of what's been used in the clinical setting and your class time when you're in lab. So that's one thing there. I want to say, this is the last thing that I want to say, that I'm going to wrap this vlog up and then go ahead and start editing it and put it up. Vapotherm transportation. If you guys ever get into a position, even if you're as an intern, extern, whatever, because in clinicals you're always going to have backup from your preceptor, and maybe there's going to be 1 or 2 other students additional with you and the nurse. But if you're ever on a job by yourself and working your floors and stuff, if you ever get a patient that is on a vapotherm and they have to be transferred from one floor to a different floor, all you need to do is just keep in mind, vapotherm does not have a backup battery like the BiPAP, and I want to say the ventilator as well, because they have portable vents, but the BiPAP has a backup battery on it where it works unplugged and plugged up, but vapotherm does not. If there are other high flow nasal cannulas that are out there that do have a backup battery on it, I have not ran across that yet, because we use vapotherms at my facility. But if you ever transport a patient that is on a vapotherm, what you will need is 2 oxygen tanks, and make sure they are, if not halfway full to completely full, because I like to per se have 2 full tanks that's all the way full. Reason being is because a patient that's requiring that much pressure of oxygen, you never want to take a chance of those tanks going out. If the elevator goes out, the room is not ready and they're taking their sweet time, there's always issues where the delays happen, and you want to be fully prepared than to take a chance of your patient coding and you having to run that code in the hall. You never want to be in a position like that because of something small like that not picking up a full oxygen tank. You probably don't have to, because the patient might be moving from one floor to the floor behind, under it. But I would recommend making sure you have 2 oxygen tanks that are full. Once you have those 2 tanks, of course, you'll have one on one side of the bed, in the bed with the patient, one on one side and one placed on the other side. And the only 2 things that you will need, because you will have to take that patient off that high flow, you will need a non-rebreather, and you always want to make sure you have that on 100%, which is basically 15 liters on the tank. But on the wall PSI, you want to run that past 15%, because even though 15% is standard, but 100% is just basically past the 15%, because we want that bag inflated as much as possible so that patient can get the highest concentration of oxygen while they're in the middle of transport. And the second thing you want to have is a high flow nasal cannula, and not the one that I'm talking about as far as the vapotherm, but I'm talking about the regular nasal cannula that comes with the taller bottle of humidification for the sterile water, which some tanks you can put the sterile water on there, but in this instance the tanks that we have doesn't have that adaptive piece, so you just have to plug up the nasal cannula in there and run that on 15 liters as well, so it can give that patient the same flow of oxygen that they're receiving on the vapotherm. But this situation would be just temporary because they're being transported from one floor to another. What I like to do is hook the nasal cannula up, put the nasal cannula on them, run it at 15, turn the non-rebreather on 15, wait until the bag inflates, and then put that on top of the nasal cannula and make sure it's very fitted around the head but not too tight. And then you would ask the patient, like, hey, are you comfortable? Are you okay? And then once the patient confirms that they are okay, you just always want to let your patient know what you're doing, and always want to let them know like, hey, this is temporary. The only reason why we're doing it like this is because the Vapotherm that you were on doesn't have a backup battery, so we have no way of keeping you on the Vapotherm in the process of transporting you from this floor to the next. So this is, I know it's a little uncomfortable, but we're going to leave that on for maybe no more than maybe 15-20 minutes, depending on how long it takes us to get you to your new room. And once they understand that, it kind of keeps them, their anxiety down, and kind of keep them to the point where they can kind of stay with it while you're taking them down. So as soon as you take them to their room and everything, you want to already have that Vapotherm plugged up, hooked up to oxygen, the air concentrator turned on, so that way, not concentrator, no, it is a concentrator, the air concentrator, because ours have like a portable concentrator at the bottom, but the ones at in clinicals, they actually have both the oxygen and air line where you have to twist them in the wall. So that was my first time seeing an air concentrator, but you want to already have that Vapotherm plugged up to every outlet that needs to be plugged up on it. And a lot of times when you do turn that Vapotherm on, it may not have the settings back in there, but you have to make sure you write those settings down before you turn that Vapotherm off, because you never want to put a patient, forget those settings. But it's not going to do harm for the patient, but just make sure you put those settings back in there, write them down. Because if you are doing if you're a good RT, you'll constantly be checking in on your patients and writing those settings down. So when you give report, you can tell that person like, hey, these are the settings that this patient is on when she was up there. So then they'll take over on that patient, and that's it. So I wrote my settings down, and while they're getting the patient pulled over from one bed to their new bed, you could already have those settings put in the Vapotherm, mask, the nasal cannula ready. So once they get her straightened up in the bed where they're ready to take it all off, nurses will take everything on, you'll put everything on, hook them back up, and then you're good to go. And then you'll take the tanks out of the room, roll the non-rebreather and the high flow nasal cannula back up, put it in a patient bag or even a little hanging bag, so that way if she has to go down to like CT, MRI, X-ray, whatever, she'll have that stuff already in the room, and then they'll know what she needs to be transported with. So that's another tip to keep in mind if you guys ever run across an issue like that where you have a patient on a Vapotherm, BiPAP, AutoPAP, everything. I think that's pretty much all I can remember right now, because I tried to close this video out and I just remembered other stuff that I wanted to tell you guys as well. But I am seriously going to wrap this video up right here, because I do need to finish watching my ACLS videos so I can prep myself for the checkoffs we have to do tomorrow. And then I will continue finishing up my other vlog that I have, which is the ACLS vlog, but it's not really me teaching ACLS, it's more so just taking you guys on another day in the life video, and just keeping different content put out there, and just a day in the life of my school, basically like the end of summer semester, you know, that type of stuff like that. So again, I'm going to wrap this vlog up, and I also want to keep saying this because I don't care how many times I say it, but I want to thank you guys again for watching my channel as well. And I'm going to constantly keep content posting on my page. If you guys have any more suggestions of what you guys want to see, any other questions that you guys may have, you know I don't mind you guys asking me anything, whether it's on my social media pages or it's right here on YouTube. I don't mind. But I am going to work on editing this video right now, because I was supposed to have it posted on my channel, but I just haven't had time to, because I did have to go to work this weekend that just passed. So I had just got home yesterday, so I was just like really bummed out and tired after getting back here after driving on that road. So I am going to go ahead and get this video edited, uploaded, and ready for you guys to see. And I am going to be also finishing up my other day in the life video, and I probably will have that one edited, if not Tuesday night or Wednesday afternoon. because now since I'll be off for quite a bit until fall semester starts back, I'm going to try to get some mini vlogs in there too, because I have been having some fun doing the mini vlogs, because it kind of keeps you guys up to date with what I got going on in school and just pretty much what I do on a day-to-day life. I do have some food that I have been making, and I think I have 2 or 3 videos of some stuff that I did make. It's not a detailed video, but I'm gonna try to insert some of that in my video that I'm gonna post up on my channel tomorrow. And what else? I want to say that's it. So I'm gonna wrap it up here, you guys, and I will see you guys next time. And I hope you guys are being safe out there, because I did see on the news that COVID has another strain going out. It's supposed to be a mixture of 2 of the other strains previously that came out. So you guys make sure you're being safe out there, and just stay safe and protected, and make sure you guys are keeping your heads up throughout you guys' programs. If you guys are just starting or getting through your second semester, and just keep your head up and understand that it's hard right now, but it's going to get easier with time. And if you guys need any additional help, please refer back to that video that I did do, where I had all the links in there of the channels that I use to help me in my pulmonary disease class, with hemodynamics, vent settings, and just understanding the indications for everything. There's some animated channels that I got in there, and there's some of I think it's a nurse channel that helped me with some diseases that I didn't fully understand in the beginning, but she is very helpful as well. I will have that link in the description box as well, so you guys can refer back to that. If y'all need any help with anything or any more resources that I have used, I will definitely, I don't mind sharing those. And also, I want to say, I think the next video I am going to put up is going to be basically a resources video, and just showing you guys what I do, and just kind of taking you guys throughout the saved favorites that I have on my laptop, and showing you guys how to access certain stuff, so that if you ever have questions about certain things, you could just go on there and kind of like go through some of it. And I think it's also a link to a website. I'm not sure of the name, but I did save it to one of my favorites, where you can do some simulations on the vent. And I believe the vent is a Hamilton something. I think it's quite a bit of vents by Hamilton that you can use on that that site. So I will show you guys that, and that's a video that I think has been recommended once I saw that it did help me, and I was like, well, I probably would recommend this to some of the people that do follow me on YouTube. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, please comment below and let me know if there's anything else that you guys would like to see. Because again, even though I'm coming to the last semester in my program, I don't mind sharing any resources that you guys would need in any class that you guys are struggling with. Because again, I was there, so I understand, and over time it did get helpful, because I looked elsewhere for additional resources. So I will do a video on that, and please let me know what you guys think in the comments, and then I will definitely start working on that probably within like a week or so. And then that's all I got for you guys right now, but I will see you guys next time, and you guys be safe out there, and I love you guys. Bye.